the end of Comsverse. Look at you all, haggard, broken, too much fun. I can see you all just covered in joy and happiness. Ah, welcome, welcome. Please come on in. We have some cupcakes here. I don't know if anybody has seen those yet. We've also got some sweets there as well from America, from the good old US of A. Right, this is it, the end. Carsten is here to talk to us about his findings in everyday life with Teams calling. Now, this is Carsten's first international talk. Because of that, I expect every single person here to be smiling at him, smile at him. See, friendly faces in the audience, Carsten.
Yeah,
and if we could all go absolutely crazy, give a cheer, shout, clap, give a massive round of applause for Carsten, because he's about to give the final talk of the day. Yes! Yes! Get him on it! Go for it, buddy. Go on.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks, Coherence, for letting me have a session here telling about my findings in Teams. My name is Carsten Milbach, and as you can hear, my native tongue is not English. I come from Denmark, where I am self-employed. Have been that for a little while now, but for many, many years, I have been working with telephony. Back in the good old days when it was PBX, some of you have probably seen some of those major big chunks of iron standing in the corner. That's where I started. Then Microsoft were beginning to look into telephony, and I thought, well, that's sounds like an awesome plan. So since LCS, I've pretty much been part of that Microsoft journey, and then all the way up to now Teams Voice, where we are now. Good. Well, what I want to try to get around is first, what findings have I found when customers are moving from Skype for Business to Teams? In that area, I don't look into if you have a traditional PBX or something like that. It's more like you have a Skype for Business today, you're migrating into Teams. What kind of problems? What do we see? What are the normal customer get-backs we get? After that, when you're in Teams, everything is working. What kind of problems do I normally get from my customers? What kind of feedback do we get? What kind of problems are they looking into? Only looking into the telephony part. There are a lot of stuff that can be discussed around Teams clients. And then, when you have problems with Teams, where do you actually start looking into the problems? What kind of process do you do? Where do you start? Is it just customer or user call in and say, hey, I don't have any dial pad or something like that. So we'll see some scenarios. And then at the end, I'll try to show a couple of tools that I'm using a lot. Some of them are third party and some of them are free of charge. Good. The first thing we see is that Skype for Business is an old lady. The intention was that we would be able to move users directly from the graphical user interface. The only problem is that, as you can see, that we need a user that has admin rights up in the cloud and is an Microsoft account. That's the first start we need. A lot of us actually have a security department that allow that. Then for the second thing, we don't need MFA because that's not supported in that GUI. So it all comes down to that we move users with Powershell. Nothing wrong with PowerShell. PowerShell is a really, really awesome tool. We cannot live without that. And then the next thing comes up. How do I do that? If you go in and you go into TechNet and you find how to move users, we all have probably seen that line coming in here where you say you get credentials, you get UI, and that UI can be a little problem because, again, Microsoft does a really good job documenting this one, but here we have this little, I've marked that 1A, that tells us which tenants or where you are located in Microsoft. And again, that's United States to the America one. So if you're trying, the European tenant try to move users, you'll get a lot of red messages saying, hey, you're doing something wrong. So that's one of the first things we see a lot of. So that needs to be changed to an E as a mirror. Or second, 1 or 2. I have not seen anyone come up on a third yet, but I'll not guarantee that's not possible. There might be an old Skype link installation. My finding is that the number one is if you had the tenant for a long time, then you're definitely number one. If you have looked into Office 365 later, then you might have the second number in there. Good. The next thing is that if you begin Googling saying that move CS user, you'll find a lot of problems. You'll see a lot of things. We have worked a lot where we have bypass conferencing. As Microsoft is stating now, that's not something that we need anymore. In old days, we had that if you are trying to move a Skype for Business client into Teams and he or she didn't have a conference license, that would be a problem. The same with enterprise voice check. If we were trying to move an enterprise voice enabled user into the cloud and we didn't have phone system or E5 or licenses that cover Teams telephony, we'll also get an error. And the last one is kind of an important one to see once in a while. If you have an old Skype for Business 2015 system and you're trying to move, you need to have that switch use OAuth. OAuth is the authentication that we're using when we're trying to authenticate up against the cloud and move the user. But in some of the earlier version of Skype 2015, you need to specify that you're using OAuth. And again, if any of you have any questions, just feel free to break in. Good. Then we see a lot of problems with rights. Everybody that works with Skype for Business that are administrator normally have that CS administrator and RTC Universal Server admins. That's pretty much the one we have, and we can work, and we're doing all our job with Skype for Business. But I see a lot of customers come back with problems where we cannot move this user for some certain, and we need to look into the local AD, because you need to have some extended rights to change attributes that you normally don't work with. So we see that it's a killer saying, hey, I want the domain admin, but we also see actually problems with when you are assigned a domain admin role, if you have a multiple domains or with sub-domains and so on. So that's normally the biggest error I see, that's right when you're trying to move users to Skype for Business. Or from Skype for Business, of course, to Teams. Then we need some rights also up in the tenant, and that's where it's get a little more tricky. I see some customers where they're just assigning global administrator because, hey, then you can do everything. And in those security days that we're living in, that's not the best way of approaching this one. So you need to be Teams administrator, which kind of makes sense. You're moving everything up. You need Skype for Business Online Administrator. A lot of people are missing that one. That's for some of the legacy commands that we used to do. Now Microsoft has cleaned up most of them. We don't use set CS user on-prem phone number anymore, or line UI anymore. We got a new Powershell commands for that. And then I have put in user management. And the reason why I put in user management is that unless you're one of those extremely large organizations where you have a UC team that's split up in different roles and so on, user management is really nice to have, because when you're working with teams, you are creating resources account for auto-attendant and call queues. You are assigning licenses. So you do a lot of stuff where it makes sense to be user admin. Plus, if you have external consultant that are helping you, or if you are external consultant yourself, you have the option to create ticket when you have that user. As you can see here, there's some nice limitation. We cannot add global admin, we cannot change password and so on. So we cannot go in and change with the other admin roles that are signed into the tenant. But it really makes everything easier for you to do your job. And when that's said, I want to say a little, remember to use PIM, Privileged Identity Management. I don't know if all of you are aware of it, but it's nice. It protects both you and it protects your organization. It's where you are asking for your requirements. So like if I want to be a Teams admin, I go into Azure and I go into Privileged Identity Management and ask for that role, and will be assigned to me for X amount of hours, or it could be assigned if somebody's approved it, so on. So it's a really nice things where both cover you and cover the organization that you're working for. Good. Still moving to Teams. We have seen this one, and this is actually one we see a lot, and we still see it. It's normally from older organizations that used to have an Exchange on-prem installation, and we see that the normal migration path is not that you are migrating from Skype to Teams and then you move your other loads afterwards. People normally start migrating Exchange up to the cloud. Nothing wrong with that. The biggest problem is that a lot of Exchange people are not UC people, and they are not thinking about that universal context store. I don't know if any of you are aware of it, but in the good old days, we had Link, had its own context store, we had SharePoint, we had Exchange. They were like not working together in a sense. Then when Microsoft released 2013, they made this context store where SharePoint, Skype, and Exchange are working together. The problem here is that the user information and so on are located into your Exchange server. And you have migrated that up. So when you're trying to migrate a Skype user now to Teams, it will come back and say it's not allowed because UCS is enabled. Oh, well, not a big deal. I'll just invoke that one. The problem is that to invoke that thing, you need to have your on-prem Exchange and you need to have your mailbox on-prem. Well, that's an easy one. You just migrate your mailbox. No, you're not going to do that because you're done with that. So when we run into that problem, we have some commands like invoke CS rollback user with force. What that does is for a short time period, Skype thinks that there's no UCS contact enabled, so we'll have the option to migrate the user right away. If we wait some time, Microsoft will out, it's not working, and it will change the object back, and you'll have to run that one again. There are some problems with that. So it's, of course, everything that was located in that UCS, like your body list and so on, will not be migrated up to Teams. So it's something that you have to have a chat with the end user, say, yeah, I know you have those 200 in your body list. Can you live without them? No, I can't. Well, could you please take a copy of it and so on, because you need to redo them. But that's one of the things that we see a lot, is that UCS is a little problem. And we also see that newer employees, it's not a problem because their user account are created after the company has moved their Exchange to the cloud. So it's only some of the old users, it sounds wrong to say old users, but users that have been created for a while. Then back when we are running Teams, one of the things we see is that when people are cleaning up the Skype for Business installation, some of them are saying, hey, we just shut down the server and hey, it works, nothing is complaining and we are done. The problem here is that you need to follow that decommission guide that Microsoft have created for shutting down your Exchange, because it actually does clean up a lot of stuff in Active Directory. Including if you do the fully one, it will also remove your on-prem phone number. So there's a big warning. If you don't think about it and you just do it, it will create a cleanup process. Everybody in Active Directory will have removed their attributes, including the on-prem phone number. So next time there's a dsync or an Azure AD sync, it will tell the cloud that, hey, Peter and Dorte and Birte and so on, they don't have a phone number. That's not a situation you want to stand in. So what we see a lot is that it's cleaned up, but the last part of the AD is not cleaned correctly up. Microsoft has done a script where you actually read out that information, take all the phone numbers, store them in a CSV file, and then afterwards you complete it out into the tenant so you can easily do a full cleanup. Some are saving that one, makes sense, because if you don't do it yourself, there's actually some kind of work in it for a consultant. And plus you will also have some downtime because you will clean out the phone numbers and then everything needs to be synchronized because you cannot put the numbers in before everything is synchronized. So it's normally a weekend job or an evening job. And again, you don't want to do it Monday evening and Tuesday morning nobody has the phone number, so we want to have some Slack in it and some kind of backup. But yeah, that's something we see once in a while, that it's not cleaned up correctly. There might be a reason why, and also there might be a reason that people have just shut down the Skype servers, because that was an easy way of getting out of that one. And when I say Skype servers, also link servers and the way back. Then we see something like this. We are trying to enterprise voice enable a user and assign a phone number. And yeah, I know that this is the old Powershell, but it's the same idea. I'll come back to the new comments afterwards. But we get a notification here that the restriction user plan. And I was actually surprised to see a lot of customers coming back with that and say, hey, there's something wrong. Pretty much what this one tells us is that you haven't assigned a license to the user. So we are trying to enable something that we are not allowed to. And again, even though it's a simple message, a lot of people are misunderstanding. Well, we have an E3. No, again, this is not a license session, but it's just like you need an E1 or E3 license. And the add-on phone system on E5, pretty much for getting this one done. So we see a lot of customers that are misunderstanding this concept. Another one we see a lot of time is the missed dial pad. We go in and say, well, let's just check the user. In 95% of the time, it's because the user is not enterprise voice enabled. So that's normal, the problems we see when we are moving with users or working with users that are working. Normally, what we see, like in this case, I know it's a black picture and black here, but that's a user trying to make an outbound call, and they see the call when it comes up and just disappear again. What can that be? It could be a lot of things. It could be voice routing. It could be, a lot of things that is not configured correctly. And again, I like PowerShell. So if you do, in your OneNote or something like that, has this gets his online user, you can just get an easy list. And the requirements are, of course, that they have a license, they have a voice routing policy, and the enterprise voice enabled. Voice routing policy depends on what calling functionality you have. If you have Operator Connect, or if you have direct routing or Microsoft's calling plan. Microsoft's calling plan, you don't need a voice routing policy. Good. I'll try to see if I can do this. Is something, oh, here we go. And this is awesome. I need to try to control the mouse from here. In the good old days when we began, so if some of you have made scripts or made a little note to yourself how to do the different stuff, we used to assign phone numbers in a PowerShell if it was a direct route, and assign voice routing policy and so on. But it's become very easy today. We have under managed user, and if we take me for example, if there is a license available, you can see up here on the corner that we have beside general information, there's a little edit bar. If we don't have the correct license, that will not be showing. So this one we know, okay, there's a license assigned to this user. We can actually assign a phone number to it. Edit in it. And in here, we have the option, say what kind of services are we getting. In this tenant I'm in right now, I have Operator Connect and, Operator Connect and direct routing. I don't have any Microsoft calling plan. If Microsoft calling plan was enabled in the tenant as well, that would be an option. Sorry. Here we'll just show, say what kind of connection we're working in, and give it a phone number. And a funny thing is that we have been used to being told all the time that we need to do this in E164 format with a plus in front. It's very, very important. Skype is not going to work. Anything with Microsoft related is not going to work. We need this E164 format. Today, it does matter if you have the plus or not. Microsoft really doesn't care. So no worry about that one. That was the signing of the user. I assume you're all aware of call queues and auto attendant, that we have this resource account, and we created the resource account and we assigned it one of those virtual phone system licenses and so on. We can do all that in the GUI here in TAC, not in TAC, sorry, in admin center. But we could not assign a phone number unless it was Microsoft calling clients. That's luckily also changed. So if we go to resource accounts, there's a long way there. We can actually go into any of those queues that we have here and assign a phone number directly to it. This makes sense if you're creating 1, 2, 3, a couple of queues. Of course, if you're still rolling out and you do 100 plus, do it in a Powershell script. But for day-to-day management, it's way easier to do this directly here. So Microsoft have really done a great job here. Another thing that I see that if you go one step back, the biggest problem for you guys probably is to keep up to date. What's new? What's going on? What can we do? What can't we do? I don't know if you heard of any of the other sessions that's been talking about that you can show a different outbound number. That has been a huge problem for us from day one if you don't have Microsoft calling plan. If you have direct route, you cannot just show the queues number out. That part is available now. So if we go into calling queues here, we just take one of them. We have the option now to actually add a resource account in here. And that number that the resource account is optional for showing out. What that means is that when you're dialing out, like if you have a channel that you're dialing out throughout, where you have your nice dial pad, when you begin typing the number, when you do the call, it will show your own personal number for outbound calls. If you begin typing, a little drop down will be showing, and all the resource accounts that you have added in here for outbound number showing will be listed. So let's say that you have a financial queue where you are supporting UK, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, for example. You will be able to type in the number you want to call and say, well, that's a Swedish customer, so I'll just use the resource account with the Swedish number and call out with that one. Again, after that, it's a resource account. We can also assign voice routing policies, so we can decide which way this call will go out. What session border controller in this case where it's a direct route, or if it's a calling plan, we can assign different countries' phone number to it. I don't know if you're aware of it, but if you want to assign an operator connect number, the resource account or the users needs to be homed in that country where the numbers belongs to, which means that I cannot assign a Norwegian number to a Danish user. That's legal and so on, but Microsoft is coming back. So if you want to do some of that, you need direct routing for it. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. Any questions to this? Feel free to bounce in. Sorry about that. Good. And of course, it's the same with the auto attendants. Voice routing policies. You're probably You're probably aware that this is that we can change policies directly. Again, right now, in the old days, when we were assigning voice routing policy, it was a PowerShell command we need to type. Now everything is built in here to the tag. A little GUI change that Microsoft should look into is that we scroll down and see what kind of policies we have, and I'm in a user, so I think if I'm clicking directly on this one, normally in my mind, I would think, okay, I can change that policy for that user. But sadly, that's not the way it's configured. If I click on that one, I go into that policy and can edit that policy. So if I want to edit a policy of a user, I need to click edit up here, and then I can begin to edit what policies will be assigned to that user. And in this case, it will be that one that are located. So again, if it's a couple of users, if you're sitting in a help desk or something like that, or should just change for 1 or 2 users, that's a very fast way of doing it. And yeah, let's get back. If you've been using PowerShell for the last, I don't know, half a month or something like that, you probably have experienced that a lot of the stuff that we normally do has been broken a couple of times. There have been a lot of PowerShell's version. If you want to do this, run version 2.8. If you want to do this, go 3.1. Now you need to have at least version 4 for doing all the new stuff and so on. It has been a little kind of back and forth. So some things I've spent a lot of time with my customers is telling how do we control this PowerShell module, what can we do? And as you can see here, we also have, if it's a brand new PC, we go in and we say install a module and Microsoft Teams, and the newest general available version will be loaded in. But sometimes we want to override something, or sometimes we want to test something, like if we want pre-releases, we need to have the switch saying minus pre-releases. Again, disclaimer, don't do that in a production environment, play around with it with safety, and of course it's unsupported features from Microsoft, so you will have early access to it, you can play around with it. It's the same as when you put your client into preview, but it's nice to have it, but have a backup PC, a backup management server where you have the supported version. Then we have force. That's always a nice one when you update, because there might be some version you override and so on. If you know what you're doing, just put the /force in, and it will just look the other way if there's any legacy version or something like that on it. Then we have the maximum version. For a couple of months back, we had the problem that if we at PowerShell wants to change a phone number, for example, on a resource account, that's not supported unless we have one of the earlier version 2 softwares. So that one really came in use where we had a lot of new PCs where we were installing that version. So we did a with maximum version on it to specify what PowerShell version was coming on. It was a irritating period, but everything works out fine, and I actually haven't heard about anyone running into major problems with those problems. Good. Yeah, we covered some of that the different the different versions. Operator Connect again is the new one, and Operator Connect Mobile really something that we're looking forward to. We don't have as many operators yet as we hope, but I see it as a very easy way to get new providers into your tenant. Pretty much no need for any PowerShell. We do everything in the GUI. I have run into one problem where at a custom site we were using actually the global policy for some routing decision to a local SPC. The problem is that if you don't assign an empty voice routing policy to Operator Connect user, then it will not be able to make outbound calls. I hope that it's just something that Microsoft are working on, because I really hope that we can mix and match, so you can send local call if you have a local PBX, that you can forward them down to the SPC, and then if it doesn't hit any rules, we'll send it out in Operator Connect. But for now, my experience with it is that we need an empty voice routing policy. Not that it was a big deal. We just created a new voice routing policy for that. It was a site in Singapore, so Singtel was just calling and then assigning that to the user. But the beauty of this one is that you don't need to do much with Operator Connect. You should just go in, find a free number, assign it into to the user. We are seeing the same problems. I don't know if I can call it problems, but if you have a 100 number DRD block that's Operator Connect assigning into you, you need to get your operator to decide which one is a user number and which one is a auto attendant or a resource account number. It's not something that we can adjust ourselves. It's something that we need to go back to the provider and say, hey, this number, could you please change that to a user number because I want to assign it to a user. So it gives you some loss of control compared to direct routing, but it's really, really simple to configure. So, and I'm pretty sure Microsoft probably come up with a solution for that later on. Good. Where to start? It's always the problem when somebody's calling and say, I'm trying to call you, nothing happens. Where to start? I would always start with the provider, look in to see what kind of, what do I have? And in this case that I'm showing here, I actually have a direct route. And just hopefully everything is working and the demo guards are with us. We should have a nice little audio code gateway here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, always nice. Well, we have a pretty much easy setup. We have a zip trunk coming in, and we are sending it out to Teams. We have a legacy Skype for Business. It's doing a lot of complaints. It's the decommission and so on, so I should have cleaned that up. You don't have to be the big hardcore technician to do this. AudioCode has a nice little tool, syslogger, and just because we don't want to go one presenter or one vendor, we have like LX tools for ribbon gateways. Looks pretty much the same. There are a little different behavior of getting up, but pretty much the information we get is completely the same. So if we take this one, there are two ways we can connect it. And if you don't really have access in, or you don't want to go click around in the configuration of the gateway, there's a little chain here where we can connect up and say what kind of address or FQDN, and we connect up to it. That's pretty simple. Now we get all the packages. And the biggest thing here is that you need to get a baseline. So you need to record a call you do when everything works, because then you always have that one to look at. And just seeing where that works. Someone
Velkommen til Center for Indtjening.
Let me just shut that one down. Now we have a call. Now we have a baseline. So this one we will save. So we can go in here and see how does it look. There's a lot of things going back and forth, and this is not a crash course in SIP session, but you have an idea what's going on here. We do an invite, it's ringing and all that stuff. So if you try to call something that's not, let's see, I think, it's difficult. The monitors are switched around, so I have to go the other way around. Sorry about that. Ring 84. I think that one was a screen here. Nothing happens. We have the other call here. Oh. And we can see the invite, and we get a 4-4. Microsoft are good A 404 is just that user not found. So okay, nobody has assigned a number. So we can say, okay, the reason why when I ring this number, it's not ringing, it's because it's not assigned to a user. We could also get another code back saying that user busy, a lot of stuff. You can see that if somebody has do not disturb on it and no forwarding, we can see that. So it gives an idea where to actually begin look. The problem here is that we have done this one now. We see, okay, no users assigned to it. Then we need to go in and check the user. Has he or she a number? Why it's not working, its licenses, and all that default error looking we are doing. Any questions to that? And it's always nice with a recorded session with all my IP addresses and so on, but it's it's a demo lab, so nothing fun in that anyhow. So good. Then again, we found out that was a 404, so we'll go into the configuration and say, have we assigned anything to that user? And of course, everything is correct. We have assigned license and so on. Then normally we also go in and ask the user to log into a browser. Because when you log into a browser, you get everything right away how it looks. Or you can sign in at our Teams, because a lot of the stuff we're getting when the client log in, we get a lot of information, configuration, and so on. Linus has had a great session about where you can see the log files, what you can find, and so on. I think it was 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock today, or something like that. So if you want to have a deeper look into that, check out his session. But web browser is really, really good, because we can see what's actually going on now with it. We can also add fiddler and so on in front of that. Good. Then it's some of the tools I see around that really works awesome for us out in customers. Microsoft have done a really, really, really awesome product, no doubt about it. I mean, in the beginning we are losing a lot of stuff, but as I tell my customers now, Teams is a full functioning phone system. It works. It's really, really good. But of course, there's still some limitation, or something that if you want a more advanced functionality to it, or if you want to dig down deeper into why stuff's not working. And here I put on a couple of links. Clobber is Clobber is presented here in this, so I hope you have been out and see the product. It's an awesome tool where you get reporting and so on. You got queue monitoring, and I'm really honored I'm allowed to tell you that they're coming up with a new product now that actually looks into licensing. So Clobber is more like a monitoring product where we don't do a lot of changes, or we don't do any changes, but we looked into stuff. And right now they're releasing soon a license where you can go in and say, okay, I might have bought 1,000 E5 licenses, I'm only using 250. I might either assign something or cut down my amount so I can save some money. So we're really looking forward to see that one. Then we have another one called Performance Metrics, Coherence. And I'll try to do a little demo of that part. There's a story behind this one. I had a customer where we were migrating from Skype to Teams and also from PBXs. And we had it kind of like this engine was running. We know what to do, so now it's just, finding, interviewing the groups, move them and all that stuff. Then by some reason, all the IT people moved away and find another jobs around the country. So there was a product manager, and she had no technical skills at all. She is actually migrating right now from this program, configuring queues and auto-attend and assigning licenses and all that stuff, even without being a Teams administrator. I'll see if I can do this. And when we have the Teams admin center, it can be a little, for IT people, maybe easy. But here there's an awesome way of showing graphical why will I not be able? Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Good seeing that one. That was me It's difficult to see it here. Here we have, the interesting here is we have in queue and presence. Here we just got, and this is pretty much similar to both of the programs. So that's, as I'm trying to say to customers, you like a redhead or you like a blonde and so on. So, but here you have all the queue monitoring. I have another customer where we actually are in the middle of designing the existing contact center into Teams auto attendant and call queues, because we don't need, I mean, they just want to pick up the phone, but there's some supervisor that wants to be able to see who's signed in, who's not signed in, some statistics and so on. So one of those platforms here are really awesome to put on top of it. Then we also have, if we go back, presenting. Refresh. What am I missing here? That was the wallboard. Sorry about that. That's the awesome thing about demos, right, guys? Yeah. Let me just do exactly good advice. But sorry about that. Demo guards against us. Here we go, call queues and auto attendant. Here we have this nice graphical overview that you can use to present to business owners, to everything like that. You can see directly if I'm calling a number, in this case, this number, and if I hover over, it will show what it's related to. If I go into the next one, that's the auto attendants, it can say what will happen. Now there's one in front of that. It will show what's happened with what you have created. And even better, we can actually go in and change this one. And the good thing is that my user doesn't have any rights up in the cloud. I only have my login, and it's done behind the scene with account. So it's a shared account that we can go in. And here we can change pretty much everything. Of course, the menu structure looks like somebody that are used to working with auto attendant can see, but it's just an easy way of doing it. And when we click on it, we will have the different things we can change on it. So it's pretty much the same way if we know that we're configuring in the tag. But here it's just easier, and we can decide who have what access. And of course, if we go out to one of the call queue, it's the same, that you will have the option here to change everything to assigned users and so on. A neat thing is that you can actually also create a resource account. If you want to create an auto attendant, it will automatically create the resource account. It will assign licenses, and yeah, so you don't have to be Powershell Ninja or Tag Ninja for it. It will do it for you. So it's an easy way of doing this one. Again, you can differentiate, so you can say that people in accounting can only see the queues in accounting and not everybody else. So you have the ability to adjust everything back and forth on it. Good. Any questions? I will get back to this one. What we also see a lot of issues or things about is phones. Scandinavia, where I'm from, is known to have 99.999% headset and PCs. We pretty much don't use any phones, but still we are relying on them in like production sites, cantina, if you have labs or something like that, where you need it for emergency. And one of the things we see is that if you buy, it doesn't matter what brand you have, you buy a desk phone out of the box, you plug it in, and I don't know if you have heard some of the session that you can control a lot of stuff in the Teams admin center, but there's been a lot of complaints that you cannot actually, you cannot control them, and it's not real life update and so on, and you have to wait till it's been recognized, and you can only assign the Microsoft approved versions and so on. A lot of the vendors are adding their own maintenance software, their own cloud solution. Like in this case here, it's PolyLens. And if you ever try to start up a Poly CCX phone, for example, it will start up by saying, hey, do you accept the user agreement? We can do that in a policy saying that it's been already accepted. The next one comes up is you need to set a password. Well, our end users shouldn't set a password because it's the IT department that should decide what password should be. So we can also put that into a policy. Then comes up and say, hey, of course we have this phone that can run Skype and Zip and Teams and so on. What do you actually want to do? Well, we can make a policy that always decide that. So all those settings, like do we want to have opened the net card if there's a second net card in the device? All those settings we can do easily by going in, and I don't want to do a full lens session here, but it's important that you know that this is available. So a phone that normally takes, 15 minutes to configure, takes 2.5 seconds, because what you pretty much does is plug it in, go grab a coffee. When you come back, it has updated the software. It tells that it's a Teams provider, and all necessary settings and passwords are done. So you just need to sign in. And again, if you do the provisioning for Microsoft, you don't even have the phone physically. You can just get the 8-digit code and you can do that. So that's also some of the tools that I'm using a lot with customer. Again, Yealink has the same configuration tools. Again, you create sites, you create all the different roles and so on. So it's just the look and feel of it. So any questions? Cool. Are we...
Well, if I can get a massive round of applause for Carsten Lund Milback, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carsten. Oh, excellent. Right, the last swag of the